I've been asked to do a lunch and learn on change management. So thanks for showing up. I hope you will find it interesting. I will be talking about 4 topics today. The first one is common misconceptions about change management. The second is about organizational change versus people transition. The third one is what is so special about the PwC approach. And the fourth one is about what digital means for change management, so digital transformation. I will start by talking about the common misconceptions about change management that I have seen. And the first one is that change management is something that cannot be measured. But actually there are very good measures out there about change management, and some of you may know about PwC, which is one of the leading organizations for certifying change management consultants. And they are measuring, they are doing CEO surveys just like we are doing at PwC, and they have been measuring this over a number of years, and it has been more or less consistent with the same kind of results over the last 10 years or so. So these numbers are from 2014. So they have measured, first of all, the correlation between effective change management and achieving the project objectives. And as you can see here, it's almost 1-to-1. So if you have effective change management, you're also very likely to have a successful project. The second one is the correlation between change management and actually staying on budget, which is also very high, 82%. And the third one is the correlation between effective change management and staying on schedule. So as you can see, if you are a project manager, you should definitely focus on change management, because it really accelerates your chances of having success. So the second misconception that I have encountered is that change management is just a side job that you can do along with real project work. But that is also actually something which is quite clear from the surveys, that if you want to be successful with change management, you need dedicated change management support. Of course, are you running a small little project where you only have 2 people in the project, then maybe you can do it as part of the job if the scope is limited. But if you're talking about major transformation programs involving hundreds of people, maybe even thousands, you definitely need dedicated change management support, because there is so much work to do. And it's about creating sponsorship, having a structured approach for how do you facilitate the change. How do you measure what is the impact, what is the readiness of the organization, and so on. It requires a lot of work, and that is why you need dedicated change management support. And as you can see here, 6 out of 7 success factors are related to dedicated change management support. So the third misconception that I have encountered is that change management is only relevant for implementation. But actually that is also flawed, as many of you know. You need to start very early. You need to identify the people that you need to mobilize, the stakeholders and the people that needs to be involved in the project. That is something that you need to do early on, and the work is ongoing throughout the program phases, from assess until operate and review. Of course, there is a peak in the middle of the program, but it's something that you need to attend to all through the program life cycle. So that was the first little section, just to avoid any misconceptions out there. The second section here is about organizational change and people transition. And I would like to start with this one, that still many change programs actually fail to meet objectives. In the most recent survey that I've seen from Strategy N, they said about something like 50-50 on the success rate. And of course, it depends on how you measure and what you measure. You can measure, for instance, do programs meet the business case? Do you actually realize the business case? How quickly do you get the return on investment and so on? But nevertheless, there are still a lot of programs out there that are either delayed, missing out on objectives, or actually closed down due to lack of attention to the people issues. And why is this? Well, very often it's because the whole change program is focused so much on what management wants and not really on the things that people see. So management might see that, yeah, we will increase productivity, we will introduce new concepts, we will accelerate sales and so on. But what the employee sees is often that uncertainty increases, there are fear of job losses, there are fear of role changes. It's also about people's relationships. Maybe you're changing your manager, maybe you're changing colleagues, changing teams, and so on. So there's a lot of stuff there that actually affects people, which is not at all written in the business case, but still impacts the program a lot. And the way you could look at it is that there are actually two transitions going on at the same time. You have the organizational change, which is about introducing new system, new ways of working, new governance models, and so on. And then there is the personal change down here, which is much more focused on change in job content, change in responsibilities, new skills requirement, and all kinds of perception of loss and change. And these two concurrent changes is something that all change programs must think about. And why is then so difficult to change for people? Well, you should say that, okay, today is easy, we have all these apps and we are all agile and so on, we are new generations and we are adapting quickly, but a lot of research shows still that because of the way we're wired in the brain, we still find it really difficult to absorb transformation. And it all comes down to a small tiny spot inside the brain which is called the amygdala, and that one works pretty much like a reptile from the ancient times, So it's about either reacting in a rewarding way when we see something nice, some food out there or whatever that attracts us, then we have a reward response. When we see something that is threatening, like a big tiger or whatever, we will run away. And it's the same way with all these kind of things that happens in organizations. We will always have a little bit, even through our rational thinking, we will still have this reward fear response inside our brain. And we see that when people get really stressed. I'm sure you have experienced that sometimes, that when people get really stressed, they become like a four-year-old kid, really, really stupid. And that is how this little brain is not very intelligent. It's really automatic and just following responses that have been programmed in thousands of years. And the way this works in an organizational change context, this is one of my favorite models. It's called the SCARF model by David Rock. And you can see here again, up here is what we're talking about, this amygdala response. So in these 5 dimensions are typical dimensions that affect people during change. So one of them is status, and there you can have either a positive or negative response. So if people see this program will actually increase my status in the organization, you will have a reward response, obviously. But if you see this is something that will actually destroy the career path I've been working on for years, then you know what you get. Then you get a primary threat resistance, and you have resistance to change. And you could mention, I will not go through all of these, but you can see there are 4 dimensions here. The certainty, how much certainty do you experience around your job? Do you know what you're doing? Do you know what you're supposed to do, and so on? If that is not clear, you're very likely to have some kind of threat response. The same goes for autonomy. Autonomy is really important for people. So if you feel that the program is taking away your autonomy, then maybe you're not that motivated to change. So this is a model that you can just steal and use. It's really good for providing a high-level understanding of will this program primarily lead to a reward situation or to a threat situation. The problem is that many change programs are experienced like this because they're rolled out top down without really thinking about the people implication. So that is one thing to think about. How do you actually formulate the change? How do you actually pronounce it? How do you divide it into consumable packages? Maybe it's not such a good idea to run 10 big transformation programs at the same time. Another thing that is contributing to this is actually some ingrown misconceptions that people have about what it's like to be at work. So one is, that is very common, is that people identify so much with their position that once the position changes, their whole sense of identity is challenged. And this is something which has really been enforced over the years through the classic hierarchical or classical progressive career model. And that one is the second part here, the linear progression, the sense that a career has to be a linear progression. Another one, again, the enemy is out there. That means that you are really focused on all the problems out there in the environment instead of focusing on how you can improve your own organization. And finally, the myth that management will fix everything, that you're not responsible and accountable as an employee to actually follow what's going on in your industry, and what does that mean for my own future, my own skills, the skills I need to learn, and so on. So those kind of myths are kind of keeping people in a situation where they don't feel the need to change. Finally, on this section and this topic, I would just like to show you this one, which is kind of a really important model. It's developed by someone called William Bridges, and it's about how do you succeed with getting people to adopt change. And what William Bridges said is that in the initial phase, where most companies are focusing on vision-driven change, they are talking about the vision, they're talking about case for change, why do we have to change, and so on. Actually, you should emphasize much more what you need to let go of, because people are so much more obsessed by what are they letting go of in the initial phase. And if you don't take your time to really deal with that, it might not really get over with. That will kind of stay with you all through the program, because people are thinking about, okay, I'm losing my position, I'm losing, my colleagues, and so on. So really make sure that you have spent some time addressing this this phase of the change. So now I'm coming into the next session, which is about what is so special about the PwC approach, because that is a question I get a lot as well. It's data-driven, it's customized, and it's integrated with Transform, fully integrated with Transform. So first of all, data-driven, our consultants are trained in organizational analysis, including readiness assessment, change impact assessment, and organizational risk assessment. And we have some pretty good tools to assess that and to work with that. The second one, customized. So we are always developing customized change strategies to address the specific characteristics and needs of the organization. And finally, our methodology is seamlessly integrated with Transform, which means that whenever we're running a program as a team with PwC, the change management stream is fully integrated with what we do. So that is the first point. And then going back to this thing about customization, I think that is maybe the key point here, that we are not telling clients there is one way of driving change and you should follow that. So we have a framework of different modules, and we are applying them in a customized way. And this matrix kind of shows you what are the alternatives that you have. So some organizations have a very high level of change capability. That means that management, employees, and so on, they are used to a lot of changes. They are used to develop their own skills. They know that change is coming. And in those cases, when you have a high change capability, the good thing about that is that you are able to involve in a much more efficient way. you can actually delegate a lot of the change work, and you can also use collaboration as a change strategy. Whereas companies that are not that mature, where people are still, struggling with these corporate myths about what work should be like, obsessed with the status quo and so on, there it will be really difficult to use these delegating and collaborating styles in a effective way. So there you need to be more direct, more old-fashioned, top-down. But what we see is that even in those cases, more and more people are expecting involvement, and that I think is also has to do with the social media and the digitalization, that people are used to taking part, they're used to engaging with each other, and people are really, expecting more involvement than they did in the past. So you can say there are two archetypes of change strategies. One is a more directive, facilitative approach, and the other one is the delegated and more collaborative approach. And what we see is a movement this way. And even if you cannot go the full, all the way to the left here, you can still use elements of it and think about how can we be more collaborative in our approach to really engage people, because the key to engaging people is really to facilitate collaboration. Cascading is not very effective. People are not reading mails, as we know, with all our digital products here in this house. But so it's really about engaging people, because the dialogue makes people learn and attend to your messages as well. So we have a framework which has 6 dimensions, and they are addressing pretty much the 6, also the cornerstones that, for instance, Kotter have been speaking about for many years. So it's about creating a transformation vision, aligning the leadership, identifying stakeholders, making communication plans, monitoring progress, and the more integrative part, which is about working with the behaviors and with the actual transition. And I will just go through quickly what it is that we do in these 6 areas. So the transformation vision and case for change is basically about explaining why are we doing this, and how are we going to do it, what will the future look like, what is the main purpose of what we're doing, and that will help to create a shared understanding of where we're going. Then the leadership alignment, and the leadership alignment is about identifying the key leaders that are important for the change program to succeed, and to see what kind of styles and characteristics you have in the leadership team, because that is very important to understand that, to kind of predict how well will they be actually speaking on behalf of the program, and what kind of help do they need to be more efficient as change leaders in their organization. So then we have some really good approaches to work with leadership teams and mobilize them and make sure that they are good sponsors. Then we have stakeholder management and communication, and that one is a lot about identifying who are the stakeholders, what is their position, how do they experience this project, and what do we need to do to engage them, but also to identify what we call change agents or change champions, and mobilize those change champions in working with the organization. Then we have the change impact and readiness assessment, which is about really the more quantitative side of it, to understand what is the impact on different parts of the organization, on different roles, but also see how ready are people for the change in terms of understanding where we're going, acquiring the skills that you need in a new situation and so on. And that one you can then measure over time to see how we're developing, are we progressing towards the goal. Then we have the culture change, which is a bit fluffy concept. Culture is very difficult to grasp, but what we tend to do a lot is to work or focus on the behaviors. Like John Katzenbach says, change one behavior at a time. And the behavioral part is really important and needs to be emphasized. So what we can look at, for instance, is what are the key behaviors that we have today, what are the key moments of truth that we call it in the future state that we need to be addressing, and what kind of behaviors are required to actually do the right thing in those moments of truth. And we can then define key behavioral changes per target group, work with the shapers. So there are certain shapers of behavior like the leadership action and the way you measure people and so on. We can work with those, kind of tweak them to make sure that we get the behavior that we want. And then finally, workforce transition, which is a lot about understanding detailed impact on the individuals. It's about role to job mapping, working with HR for the transition part, and also with the training design and training delivery. This is of course a really rapid walkthrough, and if you're interested, there is much more material. We have a good course at the Advisory University where you are welcome to go to if you're interested to learn more. Finally then, so what does digital mean for change management? So I just found this quote this morning actually in an article, and I think it sums up pretty well what is different about digital. So you can say that, okay, digital transformation, is that just, another change, or what is it? But I think really the big difference in this time that we're living now is that organizations are increasingly asked to change and transform again and again, and to modify and to improve, and continuous improvement is really something that is focused on. And that means that organizations need to be much better at managing change and to run change programs. Leaders need to be much better at developing their teams and be more proactive rather than just waiting for the next program to happen. So that is maybe the biggest difference. But if you look at what digital transformation programs actually is, a lot of it has to do with process change, organizational change, and attaining new skills. So if you look at it from a change management point of view, there is a lot of work to be done here as well, and a lot of it is actually even harder than if you look at an ERP program. It's a classical big heavy IT program. There you have to learn how to use a specific tool, which is maybe not that user-friendly, but in this new situation is something completely different. It's about your whole way of dealing with customers. Your role in the organization is completely different maybe. So there are certain fundamental things about digital transformation that is even more difficult to absorb than a classical ERP program, for instance. As a change professional, there's a number of new things that we will be able to do based on these new technologies. So we are going to be using these technologies much more in the future in our change programs. So that is about engaging people, using smart tools to engage people. It's also about using co-creation, for instance, for problem analysis, for coming up with improvement ideas and so on, prioritizing improvement ideas, all that you can do with crowdsourcing tools. And then, of course, collaboration in the project team and within different reference groups and stakeholder groups. These tools can be a tremendous support in being much more effective and efficient in your involvement of people. There is also a dark side of digital transformation, and that is this always-on culture that we're all part of. And the data, the statistics are not looking very good. So over the last 2 years, we've had a 73% increase in stress-related sick leaves, which is an amazing number. I was not even aware it was this big. So this is from 2012 to 2014. And the number for 2014 was 26,000 K. I've heard the number 32,000 for 2015, but I was not able to find that and confirm that. But it's up around 30,000.
Swedish numbers.
Swedish numbers only. And the cost of that is 6 billion Swedish krona, only counting what it costs for Sweden, not counting what it costs for the companies. So this is a tremendous issue that we have ahead of us, and it's probably not getting better for the next years to come. So I think we as consultants can really make a big difference if we become the consulting company that actually are so good at managing change that we avoid these kind of situations in the programs that we lead. So I think we have a really important task there as well. That is, both from a human perspective, but also from a cost perspective, because I'm sure this is not in the business case. So that was basically it. I'll just wrap up with the 3 takeaways. So 1, dedicated change management support drives program success. Effective change management spans all program phases. And finally, what we do, our USP, is that we help clients make change stick by selecting the best fit approach for the client and the project. So I hope you enjoyed this presentation. I will put it on Slack. And remember that People and Organization team is there to help you. So if you are involved in a program where you need change management support, there's a lot of people who have these skills and are able to help you. So thank you.